Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are on page 33 of your student journal. And our objective or our goal today is, today I will represent, and remember we talked about the word represent means show. So we will represent fractions on a number line. Okay, so our goal or our objective is today I will represent or show fractions on a number line. Okay, let's look at our vocabulary. We do have a new vocab word, and it is what is a number line. It says a line on which numbers are marked at intervals. So the intervals are these lines right here. Those are what our intervals are. So that's where you put the number underneath or on top of the interval line. Okay, our next word is partition, and we've talked about that means to divide or distribute into equal shares or to cut into equal shares. And then we have our big words for this unit are numerator and denominator. So remember, numerator is our top number, which says how many parts we have. And our denominator is the total that the whole has been divided into. Okay, so in our past few lessons, we have been partitioning circles and rectangles. Now we're going to be partitioning a number line. So I'm going to grab my red pen if you want to watch for a moment. Here is my first problem, and it says, divide this number line into sixths and label the parts. Okay, so instead of having one whole circle or one whole rectangle, I have one hole on a number line. So 0 to 1 means one hole. So I need to cut this one hole into sixths. Okay. So I think the easiest way to do it is to first cut it in half. So then I have 1 and 1. So if I need 6 pieces, I need to put 3 pieces here and 3 pieces here. Now, 6 does not mean that I need 6 lines. It means I need 6 parts or 6 sections. So I'm going to show you it doesn't mean 6 interval lines, because look how many lines I drew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But look how many pieces I cut it into. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are my 6 pieces or parts that I cut it into. So you don't make the interval lines, you have to divide it into that many parts. Okay, so this part is, the denominator is going to be 6 on all my interval lines because I cut the whole into 6 parts. Now, if I go from here to here, that means that was one piece. If I go from here to this interval, that means I went 1, 2 pieces or 2 parts. If I go to this interval line, that means I went 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts. So my numerator is going to be 3. If I go to this interval line, that means I had 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. And if I go to this interval line, that means I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. And if I go to this interval line, that means I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now notice that the one hole is also 6 out of 6, because that means I cut it into 6 parts, but I have all 6 parts, which means you have the whole thing. Okay, let's look at another one of those. Here's my next one. It says, partition and label the number line into fourths. So they want it into 4 pieces. Okay, so again, instead of a circle or a rectangle, I have a one whole number line. 0 to 1, it means 1. And fourths means I need to cut it into 4 parts. Partition it into 4 parts. So I'm going to start with half, which means I need 2 here and 2 here, which does not mean I need 2 interval lines. It means I need 2 parts. So how many do I have total? 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts. So there's 4 parts. And now let's label these. Well, because I partitioned or cut it into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections or 4 parts, my denominator is going to be 4, and I'm going to put that on the interval lines. Now if I go to just to here, just to this interval line, that means I only went 1 part. If I go to this interval line, that means I went 1, 2 parts. If I go to this interval line, that means I went 1, 2, 3 parts. And to this interval line, it means I went 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. And again, 1 whole means my numerator and denominator are the same because I cut or partitioned it into 4 parts, which is my denominator. But now my numerator says I have all 4 parts. So I cut it into 4 slices, but I have 4 slices. It's 1 whole. Okay, the next part of my directions say place an X on the number line where 3/4 falls. Okay, so where does 3/4 fall right here? Well, 3/4 is right here. So I could put an X right there. And it says to explain my reasoning. So we could say that 3/4 is at the interval, because this is my interval line, okay? At the interval where I have 3 of the 4 equal parts, period. So I had 1, 2, 3 of the 4 equal parts. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's try some of these together. We are on page 34 in your student journal, and here is our first one. It says, divide this number line into thirds and label the parts. Okay, so here's our 1 whole, and we need to divide this into thirds, which means into 3 equal pieces. So let's see, do I have 1, 2, 3 pieces? So that's where my parts are. 1, 2, 3 parts. Okay, so because we divided it into 3 parts, our denominator is going to be a 3. And when I get to this interval line, I've only went 1 of the parts. When I went to this line, I went 1, 2 of the parts. And when I went here, I went 1, 2, 3 of the parts. So that is how we would do that. And again, you'll always see that the numerator and denominator will be the same when it's equal to 1. Okay, let's try another one. This one says, partition and label the number line into eighths. So we need this cut into eighths. Okay, so I think the easiest way is let's first cut it into 2 pieces, which means we need this into 4 pieces. So we could cut this again. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. And if I cut each of those in half, then I would have 8 pieces. So double check that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces or 8 equal parts. Okay, now because the whole was cut into 8 equal parts, that means our denominator is going to be 8. Okay, And my first, I only have one of the parts there. Here I have 1, 2 of the parts, and you'll just notice then I could just keep going. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here I have all 8 of the 8 parts. Okay, our next part says place an X on the number line where 1/8 falls. Where 1/8 falls. Okay, so here is our 1/8. And we could say that the X should fall on the first interval, okay, because that's 1/8, maybe we could write that. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you are going to be trying the next 4 pages on your own. Have a good afternoon. Bye.